In today's video, we need to talk about the thorough technical inspection conducted by the FIA on Lando Norris following the Italian GP in Monza, a race where the English driver secured second place behind Max Verstappen, ahead of his teammate and World Championship leader Oscar Piastri. Let's see the outcome of the inspection, and in addition, we need to analyze Ferrari's simulation for Baku because it was positive. It yielded encouraging results. Finally, we need to look at the statements from Vasseur, Toto Wolff, and also Briatore about Ferrari. That said, let's get started right away. First, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and activate notifications so you don't miss any videos on Formula 1 and Ferrari topics. As usual, at the end of each Grand Prix, a car chosen from those that finished in the points zone is subjected to detailed checks. This time it was McLaren number 4, drawn by lot. This mechanism serves to ensure fairness and to discourage any attempts to circumvent the regulations. Teams know that at any moment they could come under the FIA's scrutiny. Attention focused particularly on the steering assembly of the MCL39. Joe Bauer, the Federation's technical delegate, verified several crucial aspects. The physical steering wheel was compared with the documentation submitted by the OSC according to Article 17.6 of the technical regulations. The clutch actuation device was analyzed in light of Article 9.3.2, and the electronic diagrams submitted as part of the technical document TD001 were compared with the actual hardware. General compliance checks with Articles 8.3 and 8.7 of the regulations were also carried out, and the final verdict is that all components comply with the Formula 1 technical regulations. No irregularities, therefore, for McLaren. From a sporting perspective, this verification comes at a very delicate moment for Norris. The second place in Monza allowed him to reduce the gap in the standings from his rival teammate Piastri, who is now 31 points ahead. However, it must be said that this result was also influenced by a controversial team order. Norris returned to the track ahead thanks to the team order given by Andrea Stella due to Norris's slow pit stop and the mistake made in the pits. And since Norris was the fastest all weekend and was ahead, they decided to swap positions. A team strategy that many judged favourable to the Briton, and this is where the real point of discussion arises. McLaren finds itself in an almost privileged position. Two young, very fast drivers in full contention for the title, but internal management risks turning into a double-edged sword. Surely the World Championship is in McLaren's hands. However, personally, I believe that McLaren is facing one of the most difficult challenges in its recent history. The team has built a top-level car, capable of competing with Red Bull and Ferrari and dominating this season. But the real test will be managing its two drivers. If Woking fails to maintain balance and transparency, the risk is to split the team. And for this year, the risk is contained because McLaren has already won the World Championship. But watch out for the coming years. And speaking of the FIA inspection, it is thought-provoking that the focus was on the steering wheel and systems connected to the clutch. It is one of the most sensitive areas to find hidden advantages, for example with starting systems or undeclared mappings. The fact that McLaren was found to be compliant is a confirmation of solidity, but it also shows how much the FIA is monitoring to prevent any cunning. In summary, Norris's McLaren passed the technical exam without problems, but the real test will be on the track and perhaps even more so inside the box. And we need to analyze together the Ferrari simulation done for Baku, which has created good results. Encouraging for this weekend, which might be one of the most favourable for Ferrari. In fact, this is one of the last real opportunities to save Ferrari's season after the Monza flop, where Charles Leclerc had to settle for a disappointing 4th place behind Piastri. In Maranello, there is a sense of redemption. The simulator simulations have given positive signals. The SF25 seems to fit well with the unique characteristics of the Baku city circuit, a track that mixes slow and technical corners in the old city and has a very long final straight, the longest in the championship. Historically, Ferrari has always shone here in qualifying with 4 consecutive pole positions by Leclerc, but never turned them into victory. This time, however, the Cavallino technicians believe that the SF25 can play its cards. In the list of the 8 remaining races, the engineers identify 3 tracks where the Red has real chances of winning. Baku, Singapore and Las Vegas. The goal is to achieve at least 1 victory to not end the season as the only top team without successes, given that so far McLaren has triumphed 12 times, Red Bull 3 and Mercedes 1. The comparison with the opponents remains tough. McLaren excels in medium speed corners and defends itself in slow corners, but pays on the straights as seen in Monza. Andrea Stella has already announced corrections for Baku, but here Ferrari might have a small advantage thanks to its balance. The SF25 does not excel in any sector, but neither does it suffer excessively in others. It's a double-edged sword, generally good everywhere, but never dominant. The mid-season updates, like the new floor and revised rear suspension, didn't bring the expected improvements. McLaren and Red Bull have grown more. In Milton Keynes, development hasn't stopped, and Verstappen has already tested a new floor at Monza, which will also be fitted on Tsunoda's car in Baku. At Ferrari, however, Loic Serra's staff has now diverted most resources to the 678 project for 2026. That said, work on the SF25 has never been completely halted. In Maranello, they've continued to optimize the setup and understanding of the car, perfecting simulation tools. And this will be crucial because a novelty will debut in Baku. Pirelli will bring the C6 tire to this track for the first time, which we've already seen on several occasions this year. The goal is to keep the tires at temperature, hence there will be softer tires in Baku, the C4, C5, C6, and managing temperature on the long straight, where Mario Isola warned of possible drops up to 30 degrees will be important. Ferrari aims for at least the 5th consecutive pole position in Azerbaijan, but the real fear is tire cooling. Added to this is the weather uncertainty, with rain and cool temperatures lurking, and we know well that the red car struggles in wet conditions. The variable conditions, the strategic factor of the tires, and the desire for redemption after Monza make this event crucial. My opinion is that Ferrari has a very narrow window ahead. It will never be the dominant car that was announced at the beginning of 2025, but Baku is truly one of the last available trains. If Leclerc manages to secure a pole and defend himself in the first part of the race, the dream of the first win of the season is not a utopia. But small strategy errors or a thermal drop in the tires will be enough to turn the opportunity into another regret. And this time more than ever, it's not just about speed. It's about maximizing every detail from setup to tire management through decisions at the pit wall, because time is running out and the Cavallino cannot afford to close another year without victories. Before looking at the situation at Red Bull, let's also hear from Vasseur. What did he say about Ferrari for Baku? In the traditional weekend preview, Frédéric Vasseur charted the team's course and said, "Baku is always an exciting weekend, with a track that combines long straights and a very technical central sector. Usually, races are unpredictable and full of opportunities, and that's why it's essential to execute everything perfectly and focus on ourselves to make the most of the package available." The team has worked hard to refine preparation over the weekend and operations on track. On a city circuit, every detail can make a difference. The goal is to put all the elements together to achieve an important result with both drivers. Vasseur didn't miss the tone. He has caution and concreteness. Baku is historically a chaotic GP, with safety cars and turnarounds always around the corner. It's the classic race where having a fast car isn't enough, but perfect execution at the pit wall and a bit of luck are needed. For Ferrari, which has yet to find victory in 2025, this is a real chance. Not so much because the SF25 has suddenly become the most competitive, but because the context of Baku reveals the values. There are long straights, efficiency counts. There are 90-degree corners where traction and meticulous attention to detail are needed. If Leclerc manages to exploit the feeling he has with this track and Hamilton brings home many points, Ferrari can really aim high. But be careful. A mistake at the pit stop or a wrong call with the safety car is enough to turn an opportunity into another regret. And this is the bitter reality this weekend in Baku. Luck, preparation, and not making a single mistake are needed. Let's see how Red Bull is preparing after the triumph at Monza. Red Bull arrives in Baku in a phase of competitive rebirth. The stop-and-go layout of the circuit, with a mix of medium-slow corners and very long straights, suits the strengths of the RB21 well. Lots of free downforce from the floor and the historical ability to contain degradation. The goal is to replicate the extreme approach seen at Monza, a more unloaded setup to maximize top speed without putting the tires in crisis. The track offers more than one way to set up. In recent years, we have seen cars with higher downforce strong in the second sector and others with lower downforce effective in the first and third sectors. Red Bull, with the way the car works, seems to find a compromise without giving up anything. The setup window appears wider than Ferrari Mercedes, which risk a shorter range of action. And as always, the difference will be made by preparation in the factory and execution over the weekend. At Monza, victory came from two factors: the absence of degradation and the package of updates which unlocked Red Bull's efficiency. Baku has smooth asphalt and little grip, with expected graining contained compared to other editions. Conditions reward those who can keep the tire alive without tearing it, and here Red Bull traditionally excels. For this reason, the RB21 needs to put energy on the front to function at its best. In Baku, The long straights lead to a drop in temperatures, especially on the warm-up of the front tire, which can become the critical point. Additionally, the Zero City circuit demands clean traction on exit. Red Bull prefers stiff suspensions, but lowering the stiffness here might be beneficial, especially for the rather high curbs. It's the issue that Wash and the team will need to resolve. And supporting Max Verstappen is Johnny Herbert. The former Formula 1 driver has openly favored the Dutch driver and explained why. Let's take a look at his statements. Historically, Red Bull has always been competitive in Baku. Max excels with low downforce cars, and the circuit is at risk of safety cars and surprises that could make the weekend unpredictable. Herbert doesn't forget that McLaren, at least on paper, remains the favorite. The MCL39 has shown consistent competitiveness and will be difficult to beat if it maintains the pace seen mid-season. However, also watch out for George Russell, as the Mercedes driver will aim to fight for the podium. Baku has never been a straightforward race. There will be safety cars and moments when important decisions need to be made in the pits. And Red Bull arrives at this track with a real chance to repeat the Monza feat. A low downforce package works, and Verstappen has shown he can exploit it better than anyone else. So certainly McLaren remains favoured, but watch out for Verstappen, who could fight for the win. Let's also hear Isack Hadjar's statements about his possible future with Red Bull in 2026, because he has been outspoken about it. Being Max's teammate, the idea scares me, but it's also incredibly exciting. I see myself there, and it would be a great lineup. I'm just at the beginning of my career, but I could have this opportunity. I would have the same car as the best driver in the world, and he would be next to me. It would be a unique chance to directly compare myself with him. These are his statements, and according to many, the Parisian rookie is now the favorite for the second Red Bull seat in 2026. A leap that would bring him directly alongside the four-time world champion, in a team that has burned several talents from Gasly to Albon, passing through Perez, Lozano and Tsunoda. Joining that team means having the same car as the best driver in the world, but also exposing oneself to a ruthless comparison. In my opinion, Hadjar is young, fast, and has already shown he's not afraid to race against other great champions. But moving from Racing Bulls to Red Bull is not a simple upgrade. It's the toughest leap a driver can face. It's not just about talent, but mental resilience. Perez, Gasly, Albon have all paid the price of comparison with Verstappen, and none have managed to withstand the pressure. The difference is that Hadjar, unlike those before him, seems aware of the risk and ready to face it with enthusiasm. If he really is the chosen one, in 2026, we could see one of the most fascinating and unpredictable pairs in Formula 1. On one side, a seasoned champion, on the other, a young man who wants to risk everything. And perhaps Red Bull at this stage needs just that, not a second driver as a backup, but someone who enters without fear even at the cost of taking risks. And let's also hear Toto Wolff's statements about the Baku weekend, because he has been outspoken about the fight for second place in the Constructors' Championship between Mercedes and Ferrari. The disappointment of Monza is still fresh at Mercedes. Toto Wolff, at the end of the Italian GP, did not spare criticism, even going so far as to praise Verstappen's performance, which he said made everyone look foolish. A hard blow for Brackley, especially in a weekend where Ferrari gained significant points in the race for second place in the Constructors' Championship. But now it's time to look ahead. A few days before the Baku GP, the Austrian team principal has clearly set the goal: defend and boost Mercedes in the battle with Ferrari and also McLaren. The standings say Mercedes is currently third, 20 points behind Ferrari, a gap not insurmountable, but requiring consistency in the next 8 races. Toto Wolff is aware that the fight won't be a two-team challenge. With 3 teams so close, he explained, namely Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull, it will be a race until Abu Dhabi. We cannot afford more missteps like Monza. The Zero track is one of the most peculiar on the calendar, for the characteristics we mentioned earlier, and Mercedes knows this track well. Here it won twice, in 2016 with Nico Rosberg at what was then the European GP, and in 2017 with Lewis Hamilton. And Baku will be a real test for the different sections of the track. High-speed straights, slow and technical sections, and a very short grid in terms of gaps. And Toto Wolff reiterated, the tight grid and margins will be minimal. If we can maximize our package and potential, we can fight in the top positions. In my opinion, Mercedes finds itself in an ambivalent situation. On one hand, the V16 has never given the impression of being on par with McLaren and Red Bull. On the other hand, the team has the solidity and experience to collect significant points in dirty races, those where reliability and strategy matter. Baku historically is a lottery. Safety cars, accidents and twists are the order of the day. And in this type of race, watch out for Mercedes, which could pull off a coup. However, certainly currently Ferrari has something more compared to Mercedes, also considering the past races. And we must also analyze together the statements made by Flavio Briatore about Ferrari and the situation it is experiencing. In the current climate surrounding Ferrari, Flavio Briatore was asked for a comment on the situation, and the former Benetton and Renault manager, now an advisor for the Alpine team, responded bluntly, "I already have my problems with Alpine. Sooner or later, Ferrari will solve theirs. I know Vasseur, he's a very capable person. To start winning again, you need the car, and this year it's not competitive. The only team that really has it is McLaren." Briatore thus reiterated a simple but fundamental concept. In Formula 1, in the end, it's mainly about the car. You can have the best team principle, the best drivers and the best strategies, but without a top-notch technical project, you can't think of competing for the championship. In my opinion, Briatore is right. The problem isn't Vasseur's management, but the car. The SF25 has shown flashes of speed in qualifying, but something is always missing in race pace. And even the updates introduced mid-season have never really turned the tables. The real harsh comparison is with McLaren. Not only have they already won 12 races this season, but they've done it with 2 different drivers and a car capable of adapting to completely different circuits. Ferrari, on the other hand, remains too dependent on Leclerc's talent to stay afloat and on Hamilton's consistency to gather points in various comebacks. In summary, Vasseur is not the problem. If the red team really wants to start winning again, a radically new technical project will be needed, and we'll only see that with the Ferrari of 2026. But until then, world ambitions will remain a mirage. And I'm curious to know your opinion on Ferrari's situation, on the various statements from Toto Wolff, Vasseur and Briatore. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe and activate notifications so you don't miss any videos on Formula 1 and Ferrari. Thank you sincerely for all your support. That's all from Rasta. See you in the next video.